Hello to you. I do hope you're well. Welcome to this GCSE Religious Studies revision video. Today we are looking at Islamic beliefs and teachings and at the concept of the Imamate, which is of course very important within Shia Islam. Please do excuse my Cheshire accent, by the way, in today's revision video. I don't want to be butchering any of these key terms, but of course, as long as you know the spellings, as long as you know how it is spelled in the exam, then I'm going to be very happy that we make it through today's video. But yes, apologies again. So we are looking, as you can see, at the Islamic beliefs and teachings for AQA paper 1, and we have reached the final key point on the specification. So we are looking at the Imamate in Shia Islam, and we'll be talking about its role and its significance. Remember, we want to answer those questions on the influence of these key beliefs and teachings. And so we'll be talking about the influence of belief in the Imamate for Shia Muslims. So very quickly, just to look at our key beliefs of Islam table. And of course, today we are focusing on that right-hand side on the 5 roots within Shia Islam. And as you can see there, Imamate is one of the 5 roots of Shia Islam, which really does emphasize to us just how important it is. And we'll be looking at this in terms of what the Imamate actually is. We'll be asking what is its significance, and then how does this key belief influence Shia Muslims today? So what is the Imamate? Well, our key definition is that it is one of the 5 roots and it means leadership. So it's the Shia belief in the 12 Imams who succeeded Muhammad as the leaders of Islam. And we'll be looking at this idea of the 12 as a key group within Shia Islam a little bit later on as well. So I want to start by going all the way back to the very beginning of Islam, when Muhammad, the founder, of course, of Islam, died on the 8th of June in 632. Now, this, of course, raised the question of who would succeed him as the leader of the early Muslim community. So Muhammad, as we know, the seal of the prophets, the most important prophet in Islam. And this is the question of who will succeed him, who will take over his leadership role as the leader of the early Muslim community that he had founded. And we had a key split, a schism, we could call it, between the Sunni and the Shia Muslims. So Sunni Muslims, who make up approximately 85% of the global Muslim population today, believed that it was Abu Bakr who was the rightful successor to Muhammad after being elected, so being chosen to take on the role. Now, he was a close companion of the Prophet, so he was an expert in what Muhammad thought and his key beliefs. He was an expert in the religion, and he was also his father-in-law. So Sunni Muslims believe that Abu Bakr was the rightful successor to Muhammad because he was elected, he was chosen to take on that role. On the other hand, Shia Muslims, who today make up around 10 to 15% of the global Muslim population, believe that Ali was the rightful successor to Muhammad because he was related by blood to the Prophet Muhammad. And various actions and words throughout the Prophet's life express that this was God's will. So your 2 key terms really are chosen for Sunni Muslims and then related for Shia Muslims. It's this idea of Ali being the rightful successor because he was related by blood to the Prophet. The idea that the leadership role was to be inherited, a little bit like with the British royal family. For example, Charles inherited the crown. He ascended to the throne after the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, because the crown follows in the bloodline of the royal family. It is a hereditary position. You inherit it based on your birth, don't you? Whereas the British political system is, of course, based on election, where we are supposedly voting for who is the best qualified, the best expert in the room, who can take on the leadership role of prime minister. So for Shia Muslims, it is about your relationship. It is about that bloodline. And so, and this is important, the Shia version of the Shahada is this: there is no God but God, and Muhammad is his messenger, and Ali is the friend of God, really emphasizing the importance of Ali as that rightful first successor to Muhammad because he was related by blood. Now, this is very important for understanding the Imamate and the role of an Imam and who is an Imam in Shia Islam. So that's just a bit of wider context, which allows us to talk about the role of the Imam in Islam. So for Sunni Muslims, based on the fact Abu Bakr was elected, they believe in the community appointment of the Imam. And this means that they believe Imams are appointed by the Muslim community, as Abu Bakr was, you know, in that early context of the religion, to lead prayers in the mosque. The role is not divinely appointed. You are chosen, you are elected based on your merit, by which we mean based on your skills and your suitability. So someone who, you know, meets the criteria for being a good imam, you know, they'll be a good leader of prayers, they've got great knowledge of the religion, they are appointed, they are elected to the role in Sunni Islam. Whereas in Shia Islam, for Shia Muslims, the role of the imam is about spiritual descendancy. So Sunni Muslims believe in appointment, in election, whereas Shia Muslims believe in descendancy and bloodline. And what this means is that imams are divinely appointed by God. So it's not community based on merit, it's divinely appointed by God. Imams are sinless by nature and their authority is infallible. That is because they are seen as spiritual descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, and they are chosen by God in the same way that Ali was in those earliest days of the religion. So this is the key distinction. Within Sunni Islam, it's that idea of community appointment. You are elected based on merit and suitability for the role, whereas in Shia Islam, it is all about spiritual descendancy. You are a spiritual descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. So it is something that is a birthright, if you like, rather than about being elected based on your suitability. And for me, the best way for me to remember this is to think about the British royal family and the idea that it is about being a descendant of Queen Elizabeth II, being her eldest son, that made Prince Charles the new King Charles. That is why he took on that role, because it's descendancy through the royal family. So here is a key quote from Surah 2, which helps us to sort of make sense of why Shia Muslims believe that the Imam must be sinless and infallible. So Surah 2 says, when Abraham's Lord tested him with certain commandments, and of course we know about Ibrahim, when we were talking about prophets, which he fulfilled. Of course, he was an exemplar of faith. He said, I will make you a leader of people. And Abraham asked, and will you make leaders from my descendants too? And God answered, my pledge does not hold for those who do evil. So this is one piece of scriptural evidence of scriptural evidence why Shia Muslims believe that the Imam must be sinless by nature, and they must be infallible in their religious knowledge. Because as you can read here, Surah 2 says, my pledge does not hold for those who do evil. So those who do evil will not be a descendant. They will not be a descendant of Abraham, who takes on that leadership role. And so that idea of being sinless by nature and infallible in your religious knowledge is very important. And that's just a nice little quote, isn't it, from Surah 2. So what is the Imamate? We've arrived at sort of the core of today's session, and the Imamate includes all the prophets, all the way through from Adam, remember the first man and first prophet, all the way through to Muhammad, who is the seal of the prophets, whose revelation is relevant to all people at all times in all places. And following then the death of Muhammad, the founder of Islam and the seal of the prophets, the title of Imam was conferred on the people, so it was given to people who Shia Muslims believe to be his rightful successors. Remember, there are no prophets after Muhammad. He is the seal of the prophets. But what you then do get are imams, people who will be able to lead the Muslim community, because of course history and time didn't stop with the death of Muhammad, and so somebody is needed, or multiple people are needed, to continue leading Muslims, to interpret the Quran, for example, to talk about what the Quran's message means for people in the 21st century, for example. Now, for Shia Muslims, there is a very strict criteria for who is an imam, and they must be from the family of Muhammad. And that is because they must be a spiritual descendant. Remember what we've just said about bloodline and inheriting this. They must be a spiritual descendant of the Prophet, like the British royal family, like Prince Charles and the Queen, or King Charles as he is now. So it is a very, very strict criteria. You are not being selected on merit as you would be in Sunni Islam. You are a spiritual descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. You must come from the family of Muhammad. Now, the title Imam only applies to members of the family of Muhammad. I'm going to try and pronounce this key term. Apologies again for the northern accent. The al-bayt, I'm going to pronounce it as. Make sure you've got the spelling there and you can use that in an answer. And the reason is the Imam is designated as perfect, pure, and infallible by the preceding Imam, so the Imam before them, under divine inspiration. And they believe that Imams have divine protection because they're from this very sacred family, the family of Muhammad, and they cannot be surpassed in their piety, knowledge, and wisdom. Now, remember, they're not prophets, but clearly they're very, very important. They are rightful successors to the Prophet Muhammad, who are perfect, pure, and infallible, as we just saw from Surah 2. And they have this level of knowledge and expertise and wisdom that cannot be surpassed. So start to think about the influence of this belief. How do you think Shia Muslims feel about their Imam, for example, and what their Imam is teaching them? If you believe this person is perfect, pure, and infallible, and their piety, knowledge, and wisdom cannot be surpassed, you're going to pay attention to what they're saying, aren't you? So I want to then just give you a bit more information that will be very helpful for the exam, which is that some Shia Muslims are what we call 12ers. And this is based on the hadith here, that Islam will continue to prevail through 12 caliphs, so through 12 leaders after Muhammad. So the largest group of Shia Muslims are known as the 12ers because they believe there have been 12 imams since Muhammad. So really easy to remember that, isn't it? They believe the succession of imams continued until the disappearance of the 12th Imam, who they believe is still alive somewhere in the world. And they believe that he will one day re-emerge, expected to be around the time of Judgment Day, alongside the Prophet Isa, Jesus in Christianity, and bring equality to all. So there is a 12th Imam who is still alive, but is in hiding. And in his current absence, so obviously he's in hiding, we don't know where he is, we don't know when he will return, but in his absence, obviously the 12ers want guidance, don't they? They want that guidance, that expertise. And so Shia Muslims, 12 Shia Muslims derive their guidance from Ayatollahs, who have spent many years studying Islamic theology and so are seen as experts in the faith. And some 12ers believe they are being guided by the 12th Imam. So because the 12th Imam is currently in hiding, it is Ayatollahs who are turned to, because of their expertise, because of their wisdom about the religion, to guide people today, to coach them, if you like, in being a good Muslim and living a good Muslim life, making sense of scripture, for example, making sense of the hadiths, the sunnah, and making the religion relevant, if I can use that word, to the 21st century. So this brings us on to a couple of practice questions. And the first one is to explain 2 ways in which belief in the Imamate influences Shia Muslims. So whenever you get the influences question in the exam, remember you could get it for any of the topics on the Islam paper. You have to think, what is the impact of this belief? How does it affect Muslims? As I say, what is the impact of it? So here's some of the ideas I've got for you. Because Shia Muslims believe that imams are infallible because of their belief in the Imamate, that they are from the family of Muhammad, they are spiritual descendants of him, they would believe that the Imam's interpretation of the Quran and Hadith is correct because they're infallible and they cannot be surpassed in their knowledge. So Shia obey these. They will obey the teachings given by the Imam. They will agree with the interpretation they may have made of scripture. They will therefore also show respect, of course, to their Imams or Ayatollahs, if they're 12ers, and pay very close attention to their teachings because they believe they're speaking with this certain level of authority, wisdom, and knowledge. Another influence, because they believe, again, that the imams are infallible, and again, this belief comes from the Imamate, doesn't it? And so they believe their interpretation of scripture is correct. So only the hadith that are accepted by the imams are going to be considered authentic, aren't they? So it influences which customs and traditions Shia follow, because they will follow what the imam says, because the imam is seen as infallible, as sinless in nature, and as somebody who has complete wisdom, piety, and knowledge. What else? Well, for the Twelvers, that teaching about the hidden imam means that some Shia believe that great Shia scholars are being guided by the hidden imam. So therefore, these teachers, the Ayatollah, would also be given respect. So it may influence them to follow the teachings of the Ayatollahs, who are teaching whilst the 12th imam remains hidden, because of course they believe they're experts in theology, in Islamic theology, but also they believe they may be being guided by that hidden 12th imam. So their respect and attention would also include the Ayatollahs. We could also say an influence is that Twelvers, because they expect the return of the 12th imam as a sign of the coming of the end of the world, would be influenced by that to prepare for that moment, because they know that this 12th imam is going to emerge from hiding alongside Isa, and that will signify the day of judgment is arriving. They may want to prepare for that. So as a 12er, you would be conscious of that fact, and you would want to be constantly preparing. So, you know, you would remain committed to the teachings of the Quran, for example. You would make sure you are practicing the 5 pillars. You would make sure that you are praying. You would make sure that you are doing the good deeds the Quran teachers are required, because you're so conscious that that 12th imam is going to return, and that means, excuse me, I can't speak, and the fact that means the day of judgment is therefore approaching. Okay, just one more question I just want to go through before I leave you in peace today. And it is a 5-mark question, which of course is where we'd need to refer to our sacred writings, or of course another source of Islamic belief and teachings. So Shias believe that Muhammad named Ali as his successor. Let me just zoom out a bit so you can actually see our scripture here. Of course, the Shahada for Shia Muslims is this: there is no God but God. The Prophet Muhammad is his messenger, and Ali is the friend of God. So they believe that Ali is the first imam who is the rightful successor to the Prophet. And we could use the words of the Shahada there, the Shia version of the Shahada, as our reference to sacred writings and a source of Muslim belief and teaching, because of course we know the Shahada is that central declaration of faith. We could simply state that imams are descendants of the Prophet Muhammad and members of the Prophet's family, of the Al-Bayt. Some Shias, known as Twelvers, of course, believe there have been 12 imams. And remember that hadith we looked at a few moments ago: Islam will continue to prevail through the 12 caliphs. The last of these, as we've just said, will return before the day of judgment with Isa to bring justice and equality. So again, that's another belief about the Imamate. You could zoom in, if you like, on the Twelvers. We could say that belief in the Imamate is one of the 5 roots in Shia Islam, which alone demonstrates its importance, doesn't it? The fact it's described as one of the 5 roots of your religion. And then also Shias believe that imams rule justly and are able to interpret the Quran and Sharia without error, because they are, let's say the key word together, infallible. So because they are infallible in their religious wisdom, they have that level of authority themselves. The imams have authority, they speak with authority because they have that expertise, they have that knowledge that cannot be surpassed. I do hope that's been helpful. Thank you for watching. If you've got anything to add, any questions, any additional scripture you could refer to in that answer, please do comment below. Have a great day. Good luck with your studies. Bye-bye.